Optus is facing questions over how long it took to alert the public once it knew that customers had been unable to access the 000 emergency service. Hundreds of Optus customers were affected by the service disruption, which has been linked to multiple deaths. Business reporter David Taylor joins us now. David, what do we know of what happened from after midnight Wednesday until Friday evening?
It's a really straightforward sequence of events, which is helpful. But basically, Optus, under the stewardship of Singtel, updated its software network-wide, and that led to an outage of 000 services. So many people across the country were trying to access 000 and they couldn't. Now, what we know is that very late on Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, so after midnight, between sort of 12 a.m. and 12:30 a.m, there were people in Western Australia who could not reach 000. Those calls went through, complaints that is, went through to the Optus call centre, which was offshore. Those complaints were not escalated. The CEO, Stephen Roos, says they were troubleshooted, or in other words, the customer service agent decided to try and fix the problem themselves. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because when Optus eventually found out there was a problem with 000 services, the first thing the company did was try to restore the 000 service, and it did. It managed to do that. What happened after that, though, has got a lot of head scratching and a lot of experts curious, because then it undertook welfare checks. Now, Optus says that was standard process for the company, in that people were unable to access 000 and it wanted to find out how those people were doing. So it contacted over 600 people and tried to work out whether they were okay or not. Now, between that point, which was midday on Thursday, and very close to close of business on Friday, it was at that point that Stephen Roos decided he had enough information to present that information to the public, and that is when Optus called a press conference for 5:30, which eventually started at 5:45 p.m.
When should have management made a public announcement?
Well, opinion is divided over this simply because Optus is not a publicly listed company. So Singtel, which owns Optus, is publicly listed. But Optus is a private company in that sense. So a lot of the discretion lies with Optus. But if you're talking from a corporate governance point of view, what should Optus have done? The ABC has spoken to several experts, and the consensus is absolutely the company should have been in contact with the public in some form or another immediately. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if Optus knew that something was wrong with the 000 service, regardless of whether it was fixed or not, the Optus should have made a public announcement prior to midday on Thursday. And Gemma, this next bit is crucial, because once the 000 service was restored by Optus, there wasn't a need, experts say, for Optus to make sure everyone was okay before they made the public announcement. So what experts are saying is, as soon as was practically possible, which was around midday on Thursday, Optus should have made an announcement to the public. They didn't do that, Gemma, until after close of business on Friday evening.
And so, David, what happens next?
Well, Stephen Roos says they'll be undertaking an investigation, an inquiry, an independent inquiry over this. And of course, everyone has said, well, what's the point of that? Because you did an independent inquiry the last time this happened, and we've had multiple deaths as a result. But Optus says it is going to do that. And Gemma, CEO Stephen Roos says he will keep informing the public as much as he can once the results of that independent inquiry come through, and any other information that Optus has, he will update the public as soon as practical.